This tweet got very viral. I'm not too sure why it got viral. I'm not sure if this person just has a really big following or something. She does have a big following. Wow, 200. Well, she has a big following for a reason. But anyways, due to that, her goofy tweet went extremely viral. Let's see, we got to over 2 million views at this point. This person, She Rage, went viral due to this claim that she makes. She says, I don't know who needs to hear this, but women who don't personally find attractive exist in the real world, and they can exist in video games as well. If you can't play a video game without every woman in it looking like a Gooner fantasy, you are brain rotted and need help. She has these 6 characters saying this is the claim that guys want, and this is, or at least 6 examples that guys are rejecting due to their looks. So first of all, I made my own reply to this, or not a reply, but a quote tweet over here, basically saying that this has been something that I've been talking about on my channel for a while, which is mass appeal versus a niche appeal. She clearly doesn't know what the difference is, or she wants to pretend she doesn't know what the difference is, because if you look at her profile, she's clearly appealing towards a niche audience of people who want to spend money to see her because she's roided out and likes to show her body. You know, the point I'm making with the mass appeal is that games are a product. You want to sell the product to as many people as possible, especially for these games that are developed with hundreds of millions of dollars, and you know, they put so much money into these games, they want to make so much money back. Who decides how female characters look anyway? The creative team or the higher ups? So basically, the way how it works is that you have a hierarchy of management, and that even includes the art team. So you'll have a creative director who's like the overall vision. The creative director is who like macro manages the whole thing and makes sure that everything's lined up. Then with the art team, you'll have like an art director. Underneath the art director, you'll have like associate art directors. And though each of those associate art directors are in charge of a specific art team that's in charge of a smaller portion of the game. That's how AAA industry, you know, it has a hierarchy. There are levels, and everything. So that they'll give the assignments to an artist and be like, okay, we need this type of character, and then they might come up with like multiple character designs for a specific character, and they will go through an art review. Usually it's either with like the associate art director or the team leader going through everybody's artwork, and then they'll check off on things. So everything basically gets checked off. Things don't just slide through. Like if the person at the bottom comes up with something, it won't just like sneak through and get into the game. This person says, you guys, this same false dichotomy argument or something, the art is the product. You want to sell a lot of the art product. Make it appealing to the mass audience. Yeah, I completely agree that you want something to sell. You want it to appeal to the mass audience. And this is a point I've made on the channel before, that there's mass appeal, which is needed. It's crucial for larger projects, versus niche appeal, which it's fine. It's fine for you to like something that's niche appeal, and it works for smaller projects such as indie because they don't need to sell as much. And niche appeal can connect more because it is more tailored towards that specific audience. It's hone in on what that audience likes, and that's fine, but that doesn't work for mass appeal products. Whether it's a video game or a movie, TV show, you want to sell more, you want to have it mass appeal. Universal beauty is a real thing. They want to act like art and beauty are subjective. I've talked about this on the channel. Preference is subjective. If you prefer vanilla over chocolate, if you prefer spicy over sweet, all these things are preference. It doesn't mean the other thing is bad. It doesn't mean that the other thing is not also good. It just means you prefer. They mix up preference as if that is the same thing as universal appeal. There is such thing as universal appeal. Universally, and when I say universally, I'm talking about like the vast majority. There's always going to be outliers. Outliers will always exist, but universally, there's going to be an agreement over what is appealing. For example, if you look at a sunset over the ocean horizon, universally, the majority of people will agree that is beautiful when they start seeing it. Because of the color of the sun, the reflection off the water, the symmetry, like all of it looks beautiful. It's attractive. Mountain scenes of nature, like these are generally seen as universal beauty. When it comes to humans, we are attracted to what's healthy because we're programmed for survival. Survival is important for humans. And when it comes to like a face, the average is usually seen as more appealing than extremes. Extremes can be attractive to certain people, but the average is going to be more appealing to a larger number of people. Scott McCloud, not to be confused with Fox McCloud, but Scott McCloud is known for teaching how to write comic books. So one thing he describes is that when you make a character that's extremely defined and extremely specific, less people are going to be able to put themselves into that character's shoes. So this hyper realistic image of this man, only one person will look at this and be like, that is me. But then when you get a little less detailed, more people will be like, that is me. And then when you get even less detailed, thousands of people, you get even less detailed, and you get to millions. And then when you basically have a smiley face, this is going to be universal. Everyone will basically be able to look at this and say, yeah, that is me. That's why a smiley face usually represents the self. The way we can demonstrate the truth to this is that if we look at the most popular characters in media, they are always the most simple characters as well. For example, you have Mickey Mouse, you have Mario, you have Pikachu, Winnie the Pooh. All these characters that are like some of the most popular characters ever, they are also the simplest characters. They have very simple designs. And yeah, you could say Mario has a mustache, so he's a little bit specific, but his design is not a realistic design. His design is a very cartoonish, very simplified design. And this is why cartoony characters are going to have broader appeal than more realistic characters. As he explains here, when you see this guy, you see somebody else. When you see this, you see yourself. So this is generally why the average face, someone who has more average facial features, their eyes are average size, their mouth's too big or too small, their noses aren't too big or too small, etc. This is why those faces are generally seen as more attractive to a larger audience, because it is more relatable in a physical sense rather than far extreme. That doesn't mean that the person can't connect with someone who's a far extreme. I mean, like, I'm not saying that you need to find someone like you to be attracted to them. In a general sense, when we look at the picture, more people are going to be able to connect with somebody that looks more average. If you have two games that play similarly, and then one has characters that look appealing and the other one doesn't, the people will choose the game that has the more appealing looking characters. That's not saying that they have to be sexualized characters. It just can be like a more appealing art style. It could be the characters don't look ugly. Like, for example, Concord had ugly characters. The fidelity looked good, but the character designs looked bad. It's definitely a major factor as to why people didn't even give the game a try. Even when it was a free open beta, people didn't even give the game a try because it just looked unimpressive. It looked uninspiring. Concord did a reverse mass appeal. Yeah, exactly. And I had multiple people saying, what are you talking about? Atsu's in her 20s. You can say she's in her 20s. But she doesn't read that she's in her 20s. Narratively, she could be in her 20s, but they made Atsu look older than Erica, the voice actress. Erica in real life looks younger than the character Atsu. Okay? Erica is 38 years old. She's middle-aged. We got guys like Philip Chan over here. I'm pretty certain he's saying this as a maybe like half joking but half serious. You know, designed with gamers in mind, designed with activists in mind. And I see like so many other images like this. Due to them being half serious as they're joking about these things, it gives ammunition to the other side of the argument. See, told you, you guys are nothing but a bunch of gooners. This is all you care about. You're just sex driven. And yeah, some of these people are serious, but characters don't need to look ridiculously hypersexualized. A character can be attractive and appealing looking. The face doesn't even need to be that extreme. I mean, this is a bit glamorized. She's wearing makeup and she looks like a model. It doesn't even need to be that extreme. Like, a character can still look appealing. The point is, like, they went out of their way to make this character look worse than the voice actress herself. I'm not trying to bash on the voice actress. There's plenty of things to say about her, but I don't want to turn this into like bashing on her. The point being is that they took the voice actress and they intentionally made it look like her, but also worse. They doubled down on making like the pores look worse, more detailed, rather than having smoother skin. They like went out of their way to make, you know, the pores more noticeable, you know, like emphasizing on like a large nose, this slit on her eyebrow. They kept that. And people are like, oh, look how detailed the engine is, which that has nothing to do with the engine itself. It has more to do with the artists that are focusing on her character. And that's my next point that I want to go into, which is the fact that the uglification of characters, these extreme characters, whatever you want to call it, these niche characters being forced main roles in mainstream games, all these are red flags for bad narrative, because all those characters that she had in her image, they all had bad narrative. Like, especially like Abby, Taash, people are mostly upset with the bad writing. When we see more characters like this, when we see characters like Mary Jane, who clearly looks like a downgrade from what she looked like in the previous game, like they gave her a much bigger jaw, a more manlier jaw, she becomes like an overpowered character in the game. We pick up on these patterns. We see that it's not only that they're making the characters less attractive on purpose, but they're putting more focus on these characters' looks being unattractive rather than a good narrative and giving the players what we want. And this is why people were upset about seeing the Wolverine gameplay trailer that came out, because Mystique had a big masculine jawline, which is a red flag that there's going to be more bad things in there, and they're going to be focusing on trying to make the game push their narrative rather than making a good game. That's my final point I wanted to bring up, is that it's more about pushing ideology. It's more about pushing a specific narrative. Like, it's not about desexualization. It's about social reprogramming. Like this whole Dove thing, you know, they're like, okay, women don't feel represented, so we want to advocate for people who represent less than 1% of the population to be the norm, so that 1% can feel represented, but then the 99% don't. Dove was trying to say that they need these type of women in games so that all women can feel like they belong in games. They also had this other one, the second one, in which this ad where they had this woman who was armored up. She was, I can't remember what she was fighting, like a dragon or something like that. She was armored up, and then she beat the level. So she went back to the backstage, like as if it's a play or something, like it's a theater, because theater and video games are the same thing, apparently. But she went to the makeup room, and she took off her armor, and she was wearing a more skimpy outfit, but her gut came out, and like all her fat came out. So the claim is this is more sexualized, and this isn't. But technically, she was wearing less clothing and she was more covered up when she was in a more healthy physique. It's not about sexualization. It's about normalization of obesity, morbid obesity. It's about normalization of an extreme physique. And she was also wearing a more sexualized attire. Like, quit shaming other people for not liking what's outside of the universal appeal. Anyways, so that's all I got on that. If you enjoy this content, please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you. I'll see you again soon. Take care. Salam.